Well, on Wednesday nights, we've been spending a little time talking about some of the great events of the Gospel of Matthew, in particular, looking at a series of 10 miracles in which Jesus is demonstrated to be the Son of God in power. And we've come to a point where Jesus and his disciples are on the storm of the Sea of Galilee. What's interesting is that everything that you read up until that point, the three previous miracles, all his interactions with people who would want to be his disciple, all those things have happened in the exact same day. And so Jesus is very tired. And so when we come to verse 24 of chapter 8, we find Jesus absolutely asleep. And yet in some strange way, he's still in control. But in chapter 8 and verse 24, it says, "Suddenly a great tempest arose on the sea, so that the boat was covered with the waves, and he was asleep. And the disciples came to him and woke him, saying, 'Lord, save us, we're perishing.'" In verse 24, Matthew uses a very interesting word. It's the word seismos. We get our word in English, seismic activity, from this. And Matthew uses this word to talk about three great earthquakes in Matthew. There was one at Jesus' death in Matthew 27, one at Jesus' resurrection in Matthew 28, and here in Matthew chapter 8, where the disciples are on the Sea of Galilee. So we have here this great moving of the world during the moments of the cross, the moments of the resurrection, and here in the midst of a mission that they have unto the world. And so they come to Jesus, as they should, in the midst of the storm. In verse 25, the disciples came to him, woke him up and said, "Lord, save us, we're dying." In fact, in Greek, it's very pointed, where they're basically just saying, "Lord, save us, dying." In disasters, we need the Lord, not necessarily just the teacher. But notice verse 26, Jesus nearly rebukes them. He uses a word here, oligopistoi, which means little faiths. He says to them, why are you so afraid? Oh, you of little faith. That's how we translate it, but in Greek it's just one word, little faiths. Faith is a lot more than just a weak resignation that you just believe something. It's a loyalty, it's an allegiance, it's a courageous confidence. And the disciples of Jesus need to know that when they fall victim to fear, they are not impressing Jesus in the least. Trust comes from simply knowing that the Lord is in fact not far away. He is with his own on their boat in their storm. And so in verse 26, he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was great calm. I'm often interested in Mark's telling of this verse, because Mark 4, verse 39, he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Hush, be still." And it's a very powerful way of rendering that. The interesting commentator, Jerome, said creation recognized its creator and thus obeyed. And so verse 27 is very interesting as well. The men marveled, saying, "Who can this be that even the winds and the sea obey him?" I think we have to admire the disciples for actually reporting their own weaknesses. I like how Mark's gospel writes it even more, because Mark 4:41 says they were filled with great fear and said to one another, "Who then is this that even the wind and the sea obey him?" They actually became more afraid of the God in the boat with them than the storm outside of the boat. And so here in three straight stories, Jesus has humbled an arrogant man who would be a disciple, sharply corrected a faint-hearted man for not following him, and now he's called the disciples little faiths. And he's using these miracles to teach that disciples, the ultimate insiders, also need to humbly cry out to Jesus for salvation. And this is the same for us.